Dayna.
And I'm Ashley.
And this is The Blood. Cute theme music. So, everyone had good holidays.
Making a
I
note
had good
about that.
holidays. No one in my house got pancreatitis, so I'm calling it a win.
No, I did have to.
No
I had to cut
pancreatitis here.
Ribbons off gifts.
Yeah.
I definitely. Claire was like, "The cat's chewing on something."
Oh, no.
Ribbons.
Your family doesn't know that they can't send ribbons yet?
Like, you know what? It was Claire made a little thing at school,
Oh.
and then they had like wrapped it at school and put like a nice little ribbon on it. Anyway,
Yeah.
And the cat chewed it up.
Aw.
You know, after our last episode, I went through my Christmas ornaments to see what was made with salt dough because I had never heard of salt dough. It turns out I have two that I bought like at you know those little kiosks in the mall that have the weird ornaments that you can get.
You get them like with your
Yeah,
personalized or
it's
whatever.
my 2020 ornament because it has two snowmen holding toilet paper and masks on. Because it's, you know, fucking hilarious.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But it is made of salt dough.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
had
at the top of my tree.
I have two, you know, this happens to all veterinarians over the holidays, or really all of the time, but I had two random advice requests over the holidays so far.
That's
We're only
not-
halfway through.
Did that include does this sound like upper respiratory to you?
No.
Okay. 2.5.
2.5. One was the salt dough. I like,
For real, somebody's dog ate the salt dough?
yep. Had made like 4 little handprint ornaments with her kids.
Oh no.
And the lab. Then they were like 2 of them were glazed. 2 of them weren't glazed
But one
yet.
hadn't been?
They were on the table. Ate them all.
Lord knows you can't trust a lab. Did it live?
Yeah. But yes, I gave her instructions on it. And
It all came up?
It was successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could see the little red Santa
Oh no.
pieces
Oh, dear.
in the box to make pictures of the vomit. Anyway, success on
Yeah.
that one. The second one was the lint balls, another lab.
Like the chocolate lint?
Yeah, got into the about 18 lint
Oh,
chocolate
no.
balls.
That's a lot of
Oh,
chocolate.
but it probably been like 5
Ooh.
hours.
Oh no.
Earlier. She's like, it probably happened around like 1 or 2 o'clock, and she's texting at like 6 or whatever. Anyways, it was like a 32 kilo lab, and probably some of them were white chocolate. You know, the mixed.
Yeah. It probably wasn't a lot of
lint
dark
balls.
chocolate.
Anyway, she tried to induce vomiting. It didn't work though. But I was like, he's gonna.
I would watch for clinical sign.
Yeah, I was like,
Proceed as
keep an eye on
necessary.
it. And I was like, he's fine. Milk chocolate and white chocolate
Yeah.
probably. He's
If he
fine.
became clinical, then yes, to emerge. But yeah, it's funny. We had that, I forget what it was. Well, this morning it happened when Elton woke up screaming. I was like, we have to go to emergency because I lose all sense of like professional knowledge when it's my own dogs. Like it literally like a wave, just like gone. I forget that I know things and it's fine. And then, I don't know, it snapped back and all of a sudden I'm like, no, he just needs to walk. He needs to walk it off. He needs to walk. He needs to walk it off. This is a digestive issue and he needs to just move.
Just needs to get it moving.
And yeah, so I'm like, he needs to like get up and move. And sure enough, he was fine. But literally this morning, I almost messaged you being like, we have to panic. Knowing, but then as soon as I thought that to
No, no
myself, that's when it
panicking.
snapped back. Because I'm like, no, Lee's just going to tell me he's fine. No, it's been my clients this week, nonstop. That's what's been killing me. Like every time my staff send a message in the group, it's something disgusting. That cat today left snotty nose prints all over its blankets. Like, yeah, I know it has a known
Ew.
issue of I don't know what causing that to be chronic, but it's gross. It's a gross cat. I think it's pretty common for Siamese cats, though, isn't it?
Speaking
to get, like,
of-
weird upper respiratory things.
Like lots of cats have growing up respiratory, really common. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the green spot.
That's common for
There's
them.
That's not.
There's a TikTok video of somebody holding their cat like in their lap between
Yeah.
in the crevice between their legs, and they have a piece of paper towel
I saw somebody say
twirled, and they're twirling it, and the snot is just coming out of the cat's
No.
nostril, and it covers the whole piece of paper towel. Dayna, it's both disgusting and awesome at the same time.
Most of
like,
that
I think I've watched this video clip on TikTok like 7 times.
Yeah, somebody said that to me.
That
Like I
is
said, I don't
disgusting.
really take, but
Yeah.
when somebody sends them to me,
Yeah.
yeah, that.
I was like, is
That's
this
so crazy
real?
that you saw it. You're not even on TikTok. I did not see that. Oh, it's an orange cat. They're always gross, though. I love them, but they're disgusting. And they always have diabetes.
Oh, it was, and it wasn't like a long, like it wasn't like a skinny string of snot. It was like it had girth.
He,
it had heft.
twisted the paper towel and like put it in his nose and then like
And it
turned
left
it. Yeah, well,
Yeah, it must have been pretty
the
miserable.
only TikTok that came into my feed
But, like,
that I immediately
the
thought I
amount
should
of
send to both of you and then absolutely forgot to do so was a lady making a salto ornament with her cat. So she had perfectly laid out the salto and took its feet and no,
They're angry about the salto.
and then she took his little feet and pushed them into the salto.
oh, she made like salto ornaments with her cat, with children.
Yeah. I hope she wiped his
There wasn't
toes
really
off.
anything, like, they showed it, like, you saw them come up. There wasn't anything on him. He's a black cat, so...
Still.
I mean, I guess he could have licked salt off his feet, but probably not enough. Probably not enough to do anything. Yeah. Taco had opinions about that. He's against salto ornaments with cats.
I mean,
Taco's actually against cats.
we'll mark that
He's
down on the
like staring at
spreadsheet.
the back door like he saw something out there.
Gilly is insane. Gilly thinks things are happening outside, but there is nothing happening outside.
Nothing out there.
I think he sees into like pocket
Agreed.
dimensions.
Yeah, I could see that. He's now waddled back and is getting into bed with the fireplace. Yeah. Do you hear that beeping? That's it. He has figured out how to change the colors on the fireplace with his face.
What?
So he smushes his face into like the touch pad of the fireplace and it changes the colors, or sometimes turns on and off the heat, or like he just
like boops it.
He boops it. It's really annoying.
Basic.
But he's recently discovered
That's
this, and he goes over to
ridiculous.
it, gets into the bed, and then boops it, and then lays down. And I don't know why. I don't know where this came from. I do not encourage it, but it's a fun thing that he's decided he does now.
He's getting rewarded by the beep.
The beep is the clicker. It's a self-fulfilling training program. Yeah.
It's hilarious.
If only he was smart enough for like real training. That would be great. But like I can't.
Someday.
Oh man.
Did you see my mom restarted the daylight posts?
I did.
Yeah.
I appreciate the daily.
Yes, I live for your mom starting those
I was
posts.
like, oh, right, the day after the like equinox or
Yeah.
whatever. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, she gets messages. People get really mad if she doesn't start. Like, she'll never be able to stop. Like, it's a lifetime commitment now. That I sent her some ridiculous pictures of my dogs to include. One of them she's using. I'm not going to
I
tell
should
you what
go
it
to
is,
the
but it's
barn and
going
take
up
some
New Year's
pictures.
Day, and it's freaking hilarious. Oh, that's when this podcast comes out. It's going up today. Because this will be up on the 1st. So
Yes, I was like, Dayna, it is not the first.
But
What
it
are you
will
talking
be
about?
when
But you're
this is
right.
being listened
This
to.
will be published on the
I
first.
mean, we're close enough. We're only a few days out.
Yes,
But all right, major headline:
that's true.
Avian flu. Everybody is talking about it, and it's going around. And yes, some animals have died, and yes, there was a recall. So I thought maybe we could take a few minutes to talk about what is avian flu, how it's transmitted, how did this cat get it, how do they know it came from the food, that sort of thing. So, Leah, why don't you maybe start with talking about what avian flu is and how the cat got it?
Well, so avian flu is an influenza virus. Influenza viruses are, across species, across, I mean, there's like, it's a regular human flu. But yes, influenza viruses are one of the most common viruses out in the world. So they affect all species. And then, so the highly pathogenic avian influenza is the like H5N1.
Yeah.
And it kills like an entire flock of chickens at a time. So it's very, very, very contagious, especially in, the higher densities that we tend to keep commercial birds in.
But not limited to chickens either.
Not limited to chickens. So the big problem with the highly pathogenic avian flu is that it's a lot of wild birds are carrying it, and then therefore carrying it long distances, migratory birds, and all of that stuff. And then it's now crossing species. I mean, it's always been able to cross species. People have been getting highly pathogenic avian flu for a long time around the world, especially in Asia. And it has a very, very high mortality rate in people as well, which is why it's a concern. But it's generally people who work directly with birds.
People don't get the neurological symptoms that pets do, right? Like we would get flu-like symptoms.
Flu-like symptoms.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be very, very, very serious infection in people.
That's why I don't people.
And I mean, generally people who have contracted it have been people who work at like poultry farm.
Right.
Right? And
direct exposure.
Yeah, direct exposure from birds. So now there's some concern because there's been some very well traced, documented cases in, there's been a lot of talk about dairy cows and cows getting, and then being able to pass that in milk. So they get it probably from wildlife. The cows are getting it from wildlife. Again, it's transmissible within herds of cows, and then the cows are shedding the virus in their milk. And we think that that's how some domestic cats have been infected. Or I think that's been proven now at this point, is that some domestic cats have contracted avian flu from dairy cows from drinking milk in milk house.
These are not like someone's pet cats. Like these are like the barn cats. There has been one domestic cat that died from eating the food that was contaminated.
So now there's been quite a lot of avian flu circulating in the United States primarily. Recently in the last few months. So it's been this big thing with the dairy cows. And then now there's a concern about commercial poultry, in that it contaminates the meat. So consumption of raw poultry products could potentially be contaminated.
Yeah.
So that's, the big concern has been raw food, chicken in particular. But also duck, turkey, any sort of bird
could be affected. And then if you're feeding your cats a raw diet, that they could contract it. And then the disease in cats can be very, very serious. And that they get a neurologic form and they die. Could it be caught early? Like, are there early warning signs for cats? Or is it more one of those, like, you won't know till it starts showing neurological signs and then it's too late? I
mean, the signs that you're supposed to look for are subtle. There's signs of illness in your cat, right? So fever, inappetence, lethargy, signs of a virus.
Signs the cat's going to hide from you that are existing.
Yeah. A sick cat. I don't think you would necessarily know it was influenza.
Can vet clinics test for influenza? So if let's say I had a sick cat, it's showing flu-like symptoms, I don't know what it is, could be anything. Can I bring my cat to my vet and say, look, I feed raw, I'm kind of anxious about this, can you test it to make sure my cat's okay or whatever? Like, is there like a snap test?
Probably not easily.
Okay.
There's probably a PCR test. It probably needs to get sent to the States. PCR tests are fragile, right? Because you need the live, you need DNA.
Right.
And
then it'll probably take a couple days to come back.
And it's probably a nasal swab.
On a cat? Good luck.
Exactly.
How much do you want to risk your life today? I'm not volunteering to perform that test.
I'm not aware. Real, like, commercially available, easy tests.
I wonder if this becomes more prevalent, if they'll come up with one. I mean, that's what happens with all of them, right? Something becomes more and more prevalent, and then eventually we get better testing, more proactive test options.
Yeah, I mean, the care isn't going to change.
No, just the knowledge of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't understand the raw milk thing. I want to circle back to raw food in a second, but I don't understand raw milk. I don't get it. Like I'm sure we lose something during pasteurization, but it can't be worth risking the bacteria that we gain with raw milk. Like, I'm not sure. Look, I don't drink a lot of milk, period. Like, I'm not a milk drinker. Dawn literally sat here at Christmas dinner and drank a glass of milk, and I looked at her like she was an alien. Like, it's weird. I don't get it. I have never been a milk drinker. I'm not, like, I mean, I drink a latte, and I know that's milk. I'm not saying I don't drink milk. I just mean, like, I'm not, I'm not going to have a glass of milk. But she was eating dessert at Christmas dinner and was like, this needs milk. And, like, went and got a glass of milk. And I just thought it was the weirdest thing. So anyways, I'm not sure I understand the fad that is raw milk. I certainly don't understand the risk of feeding it to ourselves or our children. Like, I don't get it. Like, is anybody up to date on the fad of raw milk? Like, I know the TikToks that I saw about it are people whose advice I wouldn't follow, even if they told me the sky was blue. So,
yeah, I mean,
so online, I just Googled it, that the health benefits include more amino acids, additional vitamins and minerals that are not lost during processing, and more fatty acids.
Study that they did, or like this is just some crazy person?
I'm pretty sure we add those mineral vitamins back.
No,
probably.
This is just a list of, like,
does it
what
say
is
which amino acids?
I put in,
because that matters.
No, I mean, I can click into it and
your
read
Google
a more detailed thing. This is just like a quick overview. And they, whoever they are, say it's better for people with lactose intolerance, asthma, and autoimmune and allergic conditions. Now, I am lactose intolerant.
It doesn't get rid of the I don't understand.
I know I said I hadn't had raw milk before. I did, because one of my friends growing up lived on a dairy farm, and in the winter when we were tobogganing, her mom used to go out and dip into the milk tank, because they had like a smaller milk tank for their personal use from like the milk tank that ADL would pick up. And she would make hot chocolate with it. So I have had raw milk. Granted, it was boiled, but I don't know if that's enough to be considered
it would destroy
pasteurized.
Bacteria. Yeah.
But I still react to that
it's
milk.
Still milk.
Like I would still.
Yeah, it doesn't get rid of the lactose.
Somebody tried to tell me once you could have goat milk because it has no lactose, but goat milk actually has more lactose.
No, I react very badly to goat milk.
Unless whatever, risk it. It's your bathroom, but I'm just saying you might not want it.
I mean, like, as a lactose intolerant person, I risk it all the time for like cheeses that I think are worth it. But I know for a fact, it doesn't matter if it's raw milk or not. I'm still reacting to it. Like, you need to add an enzyme to, like, get rid of the lactose.
I can't imagine this is something that's been studied. And I don't think there's a scientific paper that's going to come out and say raw milk is better because.
No. I mean, the food aspect.
No.
Of pasteurization. That was like a huge advancement in, like, human health.
I don't know why we're trying to do away with those.
Not sure. But yeah, I don't...
It's just Darwinism. I mean, it's fine.
Going back to the animals, don't feed your cat milk anyway.
Yeah, stop doing that, period.
Can't digest lactose either. So you don't that whole, like, myth about your cat...
wanting a bowl of cream.
No, it's not a thing.
I saw a TikTok of someone that did that this year, like at Christmas time. They give their cat a bowl of cream. And they're like, but she loves it. I'm like, she is a cat. No, she would love a string.
Dayna, we used to have a pet sitting client that wanted
If
us
you'll
to
recall,
give
we
their
refused to do
cat
that.
a saucer of milk. Yeah, we did, but they were like, no, like every night.
I do remember.
So it wasn't just a special treat. This person was actually
really want to. There are products
consistently
that are
feeding.
made for cats
Yes.
that are like cat milk that aren't really milk. If
Yeah.
you really wanted to do something like that, but don't feed your cat unpasteurized. Don't feed it even pasteurized milk. Don't do that.
It doesn't need cream
It
products.
does not need cow milk.
Yeah, no, it doesn't need any milk. Stop giving it milk, cream, whatever. Like, just stop it.
But yeah, there's also a risk for cats who hunt, and hunt wild birds that they could potentially.
But also just leave your cats indoors. Problem solved. Like, then we're completely eliminating that risk. Like, they just stop it. The wild bird population also doesn't need your cat out there causing it problems. It has enough problems. But I want to circle back to the food, because for me, in this industry, and I'll be honest, we carry the treat line of this company. Well, we carried it. It's about to get taken off my shelves. Not as quickly as I would have if we carried their food line. That would have been like put in the back in boxes, like ready to go. But we do carry their treats. So it'll get packed up and sent out when the shipment comes. Like, they switch, like they bring you your new order and they take away the distributor will take away the old stuff. I am impressed with their response, because there have been companies who have been told that they need to participate in a recall for a variety of reasons, and they refuse to participate. This company didn't wait for the FDA to get involved. They got word that this cat had gotten sick, passed before they could issue the notice. I think it happened very quickly. And issued a voluntary recall immediately of the entire lot across the entirety of North America. Like, it went through a lot of the Western states and into British Columbia. They recalled the entire lot. And they're doing a lot of internal tests to figure out how this got through their system and why it happened and whatever, which is very admirable. However, now it does not meet my standards of quality control, which is that they should have been batch testing for this, especially knowing that it's a huge issue in the States right now, and they should have been prepared for that.
Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Leah.
Chicken? Was it a chicken based?
It was turkey.
Was it turkey?
It was a turkey feline. And what I don't know is if it was their raw or their freeze-dried raw. That's sort of been unclear through a lot of the reporting, and I think it doesn't matter. Like, I think they recalled the whole lot, because the freeze-dried is just the raw lot that they freeze-dry a portion of. So they've recalled the whole lot, which is, I think, again, for me, admirable. They didn't wait for someone to force them to do it. They did the right thing right away, and I think that they deserve kudos for that. But I am disappointed that this wasn't caught through any of their quality control protocol.
Dayna, just before we move on, you mentioned batch testing, and I'm sure that there's going to be people listening that don't know what batch testing is.
So
what is it?
On your bag of food, and remind me to circle back to why you need to keep that in a second, there's always a lot number on it. A lot number and an expiration date. They're usually very close to each other, if not like in the same stamp on your bag or on your package. That lot number is the batch. So some say batch number, some say lot number. It kind of depends on your company and what they write. They're not testing every single lot and every single batch for all sorts of different pathogens. And in my opinion, they should be testing for this, knowing it's an issue if that's possible. In fairness, I don't know if they can, but they should be if they can. That's where they fail for me. So the raw food companies I carry test every single batch. So I know they test for Listeria, Salmonella, and a couple of other ones, like for sure every batch, no matter what. I have reached out to my raw food companies. Now it's the holidays, so there's been some delay, obviously, in response. But I've reached out to the companies I carry to be like, A, what's your statement on this? And B, confirm that you're testing for this and you're testing every batch for this, because otherwise I'm going to put a pause on carrying poultry, freeze-dried or raw products in my store. But you want to make sure that that batch, so if you get a recall and they'll announce the lot number, the batch number that was affected, you need to check your package for that lot number and usually a same corresponding expiration date. Although my advice is if it's the same lot number, just take it back to your store and don't trust it. But that's also why you need to keep your package. So if you're the type of person who's buying their kibble, because this applies to kibble as well, and you take it home and you dump it into like a plastic or a tin or a glass container, stop it. Like immediately today, stop it. Just stop it for so many reasons. One, plastic leaches. Two, you are not cleaning that thing out every single time, and don't even try to convince me that you are. And if you are, you're scratching that plastic, and mold and bacteria will sit in those scratches and build into your kibble, and you're just going to have problems. So stop it. And two, you need that lot number, because if something goes wrong, your pet store is going to call you and say, hey, or they should if they're taking your information. If you shop with me, I'm going to call you and say, hey, Ashley, you bought this bag from my store. It's been recalled. I need you to bring me back whatever's left of it. And it has to be in the bag. So you can't be throwing that bag out. And you don't want to make your pet sick with your disgusting non-washed plastic bin. Just take your whole bag, put the whole bag with the food in the bag, in the bin, close the bin. Because I get it, kibble smells gross. You don't want your house to smell like kibble. That's fine. I'm with you on that. But just put the whole bag in. Also buy size appropriate bags. Your 5-pound dog does not need a 30-pound bag of kibble. It will go well bad before you can finish that. So, just a little extra tidbit there. It goes stale and the dust gets worse and mold builds. It's just, stop it.
I will tell people if they really want to buy the big bag for their 5-pound dog that they have to store it in the freezer. So if
that will help.
Freezer for that giant bag of dog food, which most people don't.
No, and you'll be at your vet anyways, because you're going to end up with GI upset because that's stale, or your dog will refuse to eat it. So if you're the type of person where you're like, yeah, you know what? Like halfway through the bag, my dog stops eating it. That's why. Buy the smaller bag. Anyways, that was a different rant that was not relevant to the recall situation, but like solid advice anyways.
Just to know too about, the raw food potential contamination is that dogs can also be affected with bird flu.
It was a coincidence that this happened to be a cat.
It seems that dogs don't tend to show very many signs. They have very mild disease, if any disease at all. They can get it.
I didn't realize it wasn't as fatal, though.
No.
That's an interesting tidbit.
Seems that in cats, we saw the same thing with cats in COVID.
True. We did. How interesting is that?
Yeah.
And yet they're the ones that won't tell us they're sick. Cats are making a terrible evolutionary choice, I'm just saying.
Well, and I think cats are more likely to be exposed. To the virus, because of birds.
Fair, yeah. And I will say, I have people who will come into my shop and tell me that they read online that their little animal can't eat beef because that's not what they would eat in the wild. So they have to eat something they could catch if they were wild. That's not how domestication works. So yeah, if they were a wild cat, maybe. But let's think about it. Wild cats are savannas. They eat all sorts of fucking things. They're crazy.
Well, and check our nutrition episode.
So
more
true.
Information about that.
Yeah.
So we did talk
about that. Yeah. Now it is true in dogs that some small dogs have a harder time digesting raw meat or red meat. Sorry. Fine. We also have a harder time digesting red meat, but cats are literally designed to break down meat. They're freaking crazy. Anyways, just saying, your cat can absolutely have pork or beef or whatever, and it's fine. Mostly, generally. Don't take that as solid advice. Just talk to your veterinarian.
Just a note about the human health risks. The reason that we're not seeing human disease from eating chicken is that it's cooked.
Yeah.
And that the cooking process will kill the virus for sure.
Yeah. And if you're feeding raw food, before you hear this and go, oh, I better cook my raw food, please don't. Without confirming how small the bone is ground in your particular food. Sometimes it's very finely ground. You're fine to technically lightly cook it. But sometimes it is not finely ground and therefore it is not safe to cook. So please, before you cook it, check that with somebody who actually knows. So your raw food company, maybe your pet store, if you bought it at a not massive chain that doesn't know anything. But just check that before you cook it. And if you're really anxious about it, stop feeding raw food. If you're that nervous, just go back to kibble. Yeah.
I think our Canadian-based companies, Dayna can answer this probably better than me. Our Canadian-based companies, there's a little bit more food safety surveillance in Canada. What they subscribe to, the company.
I was going to say, that's going to vary by company.
Yeah, if you listen to our nutrition episode where we talk about the guy in the truck. I mean, you don't want to get that anyway, but I'm just saying that the good Canadian companies, there's a little bit more food safety oversight in Canada. Related to bird flu specifically.
Yes. The one company that got back to me very quick, like same day within an hour, not even joking, like so fast, mid-holidays, I might add, got back to me and confirmed they are still batch testing every batch. They are only pulling food from human grade farming. Like they're not getting it from some guy off a truck, right? Like they're only pulling it from farms that are, what did you call that acronym? OMAFRA and CFIA inspected facilities. They still have their HACCP or whatever that, I can never remember what is it called? Hang on, I have it here. It's the HACCP. Oh, look at that. I was right. Certification, which also is like a huge food safety sort of like the protocol that they have to follow and do all these things, and they're inspected regularly because of it. So Big Country did get back to me right away and confirmed all of that. They already were on top of the recall that wasn't theirs. For the record, it was Northwest Naturals that this affected. They knew about it already. They'd already written a statement. They knew we were going to get calls about it. So they were super on top of response there. So I can confirm they do. The other raw food company that I carry is actually American. And they're in the States, obviously, as Americans. But they have not gone back to me yet. I assume their reps are probably on holidays, right? We're smack in the middle of that 2-week period where everybody's on vacation. So I assume I'll hear back from them in January, but they also had subscribed to significantly more safety protocols than the bare minimum that the FDA requires. So I'm curious to hear back what their position statement's going to be about all of this, but I can confirm that Big Country Petco got back to me immediately about how they're handling this and what they're making sure that the poultry they put into their food is safe. And I can confirm if you're feeding Big Country poultry, it is found fine enough, that you could safely cook it. Not the turkey, just the chicken. And maybe the duck. I'd have to check the duck. But you could lightly cook it. Please don't microwave it, though. I've heard some horror stories about that. Where, like, bones will, like, come out of places. Because the microwave is weird, right? How microwaves work. So, stove would be fine. Oven, maybe, if you're really feeling it. But
bake it.
Yeah. But yeah, all that to say, like, Big Country did confirm that they subscribe to all of these things. They follow all of these things. But like we also talked about in the nutrition episode, pet food in Canada is completely unregulated. Like, it is on the company to decide that they have put in place these quality control measures and that they follow them. And Big Country actually went so far to not say, well, we're not just going to voluntarily follow them. We're actually going to make sure someone's coming in and making sure we're following them, right? So, and they do, Ash and I were talking about this earlier, part of their quality control measure is that they do all their own storage. So they don't house their food in anybody else's warehouse and rely on anybody else to do it. And they do all their own distribution. So they only rely on their trucks, their facilities, their staff, their people. That's it. And I have to say, we were talking about it and she's like, that's a lot. I'm like, you know what though? I feel like that's what I would be doing because I'm such a control freak. I would be saying the same thing. Like, I'm not trusting anybody else with my quality control. I'm going to do it myself. So I have mad respect for them. But they actually just won, the owner, Geraldine, who's a woman, by the way. It's a woman-owned company. Just won Entrepreneur of the Year. How cool is that? I forget from who.
Oh,
but
that's pretty awesome.
That's why they couldn't come to the gala this year. They were busy winning an award. It was a very fair award to skip our little shindig for, but still. But yeah, so yes and no. Like, some Canadian companies will have higher standards. Even in kibble, we'll see that. Like, Oven Bake did the same thing. They didn't trust grains coming from other places because, what is that? The vetotoxin, what is that called? Vetum, whatever it is. I don't know. There's a crazy toxin you can get from, like, corn being poorly stored or something. So they do all their own mills, their own. No, it starts with a V. It's not very common. I was reading about
lots of grains from China have been implicated with lots of recalls of different things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they were like, screw it, we don't trust it. We're doing our own. They literally built a millery at their facility in St. Hyacinthe, Quebec. Built their own millery, and they do all their own grains in-house because they said the same thing. We're not trusting anybody else with any part of the process of our food. We're going to do it ourselves. And I genuinely, like, that costs a lot of money, but I have mad respect for the companies that went out of their way to say we aren't trusting our quality control to anybody else.
I think that's fair. At the end of the day, I think it's a good, like, ROI.
Probably eventually, once you pay off all that machinery.
Say with certainty. Yeah, but even before then, like, think about it. When a recall goes out, how many pet parents have to return their food, and then you lose trust in the company, so you look for a new pet parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then you look at retailers like me. I don't carry their food, but now I'm not going to carry their treats either because I lost faith in the company and I'm not taking the risk. Right? So retailers will drop it too, and I won't be the only one.
At the end of the day, I think something like that is good ROI. Good for those.
It's a slower build, right? You're not as, obviously profits on every business's mind. That's fair. But you're more concerned about making sure you're putting out the right product with the right quality control and doing it ethically and responsibly, as opposed to I need the quick buck today. And I appreciate that. Yeah. Because that has technically been my business model. If I didn't care, I would spend a lot less time slapping things out of customers' hands. I'm just saying. It's always puppies, though. It's always puppies. Because I'm like, nope, I refuse to have you go into your vet's office and explain why your dog's teeth are broken and blame me. That is not happening. So like, I spend a lot of time telling clients they can't have that, which retailers don't do. We're just happy you're spending money in our store. But I slap stuff out of people's hands every day.
I think a part of that, too, is just the mass amount of misinformation that's out there. Like, you know, you get a puppy and you're told, oh, I need something for my puppy to chew on to stay entertained. Well, you're not told what an appropriate thing for the puppy to chew on is. You think, oh, rawhide or antlers or smoked bones or like all these things that we all know are not appropriate for puppies.
I struggle because people want something that's going to keep their puppies occupied, right? They're like, well, I want it to be busy for more than 20 minutes. And you're like, too bad. You can occupy your puppy.
Yeah, that's the owner's
they
job.
Want to be able to like give it something and walk away. I'm like, you could have this bully stick. It is safe for your puppy to chew on at his age. Should you leave it unsupervised still? No. Because would you leave a 2-year-old in a room full of toys? A human, I should specify. No, you wouldn't. They're going to choke and die. So is your puppy. Stop it. Stop leaving it unsupervised to chew on stuff.
I don't even leave my senior dogs unsupervised with things like bully sticks.
No, they shouldn't be unsupervised with stuff. Anyway, this is, again, separate rant, but same vibe, right? Like, I'm just sort of, quality over quantity is the vibe we've chosen. And I have, again, respect for Northwest Naturals and the way they've handled this situation. And I am curious to see what's going to kind of come out as everybody, like the FDA is going to do an investigation. They're going to do an internal investigation. Those things just take time. But I'm very curious to see what they're going to do about this. And, you know, if they're going to come out and say, well, we really did do everything we were supposed to do and this somehow slipped through the cracks. Maybe they're not going to know how it happened. I don't know. But I am curious.
Do you think they'll release the results of their internal investigation?
It's what the FDA decides to do with it.
Yeah. I think they have to. It's been so publicized. They can't keep it quiet.
And I think it might depend on other animals also.
There's that too. And I mean, so in this case, and you touched on it briefly, Dr. Lee, we know that this cat that died got the avian flu from the food because of genome sequencing. So we can't speculate and say, well, maybe it got out that day and ate an infected bird, right? We know that it came from the Northwest Naturals food in this particular case.
Just to clarify what that means is that they sequenced the virus in the cat and then they DNA sequenced the virus in the food and they matched.
Yeah. Super cool.
Like
so cool.
CSI.
Yeah. CSI veterinary. I would
That's
watch
some intense
that.
Science.
Is anyone from Netflix listening? CSI veterinary. Let's do it. I want to do it. How cool would that be?
And that's how you trace outbreaks in modern science. It's really
Cool. So cool. Do you have any idea there are some cool conference topics coming up, and I had to like forego the really cool thing that I know nothing about for the stuff that I should actually be learning about. I was really disappointed because I'm like, that sounds fun and I really want to go to that. Or like there was like a surgery workshop. I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna go to that. And Tom's like, for what? Like, for fun.
Swinging back to avian flu and cats, because we know that there was one cat that unfortunately died from this and another that was sick with it, should we expect like more cats to get sick? Or like, is
It's
that
possible?
I mean, I guess so. I don't know.
I mean, I think so. I think that the veterinary community, for sure, there's been a lot of, sharing of cases and discussion about the symptoms to look for and to consider this as a like potential cause of illness in cats, especially if there's some kind of risk factor like the exposure to birds.
Well, and especially like your practice is rural suburban, because the suburbs are sort of approaching your clinic. But you must have a lot of clients who have outdoor cats, right? That this is going to be an issue with.
Well, it's like avian flu's already been a big topic because of backyard poultry.
Oh my God, why did everybody get chickens?
Right? So like this
pandemic,
the spread of avian flu, and then especially like backyard poultry flocks are unmonitored.
There was an issue over the pandemic too with avian flu here, wasn't there? Because we had a chicken come in to FAM. And, well, it didn't end up coming in, thank God, because I couldn't find a veterinarian to see it. Because of avian flu.
There's really no veterinary care for backyard poultry, really. There's no food safety because...
Well, they're not food.
Well, yeah, I mean, some people are having them slaughtered for food. Again,
you know what? My in-laws are. They have chickens that they slaughter every year. Well, they don't do it. They take it to like a...
But it's a big risk for transmission of the disease and outbreak of the disease. So, you know what? Avian flu's already been a pretty hot topic. Again, like because of the dairy cows and, get into import-export things with the U.S.
Well, that might come to an end soon enough.
We're going to cut off their power.
Chicken.
Are domestic?
Now there's been, a lot of recent chatter about, we got to look for this in cats, and it's something to be on the radar, and because there is a lot of human health implications.
Yeah. So it's reportable. If you guys come across a case, you've got to report it.
Yeah.
Are exotic birds that are pets at risk of this? Like if you have a parrot of some kind and a cat that you let inside outside, how risky is that to your...
That's a good question.
Your bird?
I don't think...
Good question.
Like those kind of birds are as susceptible.
I'm going to Google it.
But that's a good question.
That's a really good question.
I haven't heard of
Or like I see on TikTok, like there are people that have, parrot birds and they let them fly free outside. They're trained to come back like to the handler. But like those birds I imagine would have a bit more risk than like your bird that sits in your house and doesn't ever go outside.
I mean, I think like the big risk is commercial poultry, right? Because of the close quarters, multiple birds.
So the AVMA website had an answer. So the American Veterinary Medical Association says that captive birds with access to the outdoors where they could be exposed to infected wild birds or virus contaminated surfaces or materials would be at risk. So if you have a cat that goes indoor, outdoor, attacks a infected whatever and comes back into the house and you have a pet parrot, that according to the AVMA, they could be at risk. Their percentage of risk, unspecified.
That reminded me, sorry, I'm just going to pull up because I got this really great, FAQs from cat, one of those like cat, feline specific, practices about the risk for cats. So it's
The one here, like our feline specific.
no, this is from the U.S.
Okay.
So yeah, because they were
Right. They were on.
They're more
yeah.
affected.
Yeah.
But it says that so if humans are coming into contact with chickens, or you visit a farm, you walk through a barn, go to a fair, or like an exhibit. This is not happening in Canada right now, but you think about your like fall fairs and the poultry, all the show chickens. So it's like, we recommend that you thoroughly clean and disinfect your shoes, any clothing items you are wearing, as wash hands before greeting your cats when you get home. Cats may rub their faces on your shoes or pant legs, which could have virus particles.
So we're doing full parvo protocol if we come in contact.
In contact with chickens.
Full parvo protocol, basically.
Yeah. Clean, yeah.
I do know.
The virus can live on surfaces. It's very transmissible, right?
And for a length, for a long time.
For a while, I think flu virus, like a week, I think is the kind of standard.
That's a very long
thing. Flu is it's an enveloped virus.
You lost me immediately.
It's basically got like a
protective layer,
shield, envelope.
I get it. That makes logical sense.
So they're harder to get to kill in the environment.
So like cold weather would kill it.
Cold weather would kill it. Freezing would kill it.
Because I know, like when you do,
you can transfer on your clothes, on your hands.
Like when we do the emergency shelters and we have parvo protocol. I mean, there's always a parvo wing, basically, that's completely separate from everybody else. But if you work in that unit at all, first of all, you go in protective gear, but you still like get into the parking lot before you get in your car and like strip down, put them in a garbage bag, put your regular clothes on, come home, throw that entire thing into the dryer or the washer on like hot, pour your whatever, soap and bleach and whatever into it, and then hot in the dryer is what we usually do. And even then I'll let it, like I usually will put it back in a new garbage bag and let it sit for like a week before I put it back on. I mean, I haven't done it in a long time, but that's like when Taco was really sick and I was going around seeing other animals, I basically did that every time I came into my house. In my garage, I would change clothes. I would have Richard bring me clean clothes. Like because he's 19 and I was just being like crazy. Wasn't really necessary, but I was being hyper because he almost died in February. He was super sick. And I'm just not emotionally ready to handle that or stable enough to handle that. So that's what I did. I basically did perfect protocol, and I didn't realize I should be doing that for maybe I rename. I'm going to relook at my medical protocol.
Chickens. Anyways, it's really if you have contact with birds.
We do a lot of domestic.
You can
not a lot of chickens.
Again, though, like how much risk are those? That
we had ducks that we looked after.
I have out of, to be clear, 1,294 clients, because that's where we're at right now. I have less than 10 with backyard chickens. So it's not like a huge part of our business, but I am now sort of thinking to myself, I don't know if I have a really great chicken interaction decontamination protocol written for our staff. So maybe I need to go write one of those. They're all going to make fun of me for it, but I'm going to do it anyways. But yeah, that's crazy. I hadn't really considered about your backyard chickens. How do they get avian flu? Like, how does a bird get avian flu?
From probably most likely another bird.
So like a wild bird coming into the yard or something. You can't really stop that. Like,
I know we had here. No, but we had here on the island the last 3 years, we've had avian flu warnings. So Ministry of Health, and I forget the other governmental departments, decreed that if you had bird feeders outside, you couldn't use them anymore. You had to take them down and dispose of them because they could have been contaminated. We weren't allowed to put bird seed out for wild birds because them congregating meant that if one had avian flu, they would pass it to the others. And if you found dead birds, crows and seagulls in particular, you had to call wildlife and fisheries, and they would come and collect the dead birds for testing. Now, 2 summers ago, we had a dead crow in our backyard. and I had to call and report it. But Fisheries and Wildlife at that time told me just to assume the bird had avian flu, and they walked me through how to dispose
Probably
of it
safer
properly.
to assume it. I feel like it was 2 years ago. We had an outbreak in Ontario, in like down past Toronto, like really southern Ontario.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern that it's really rampant in wild bird populations.
Yeah. And there's just nothing we can do about it. There's no like mass vaccination that we could do, like where they like spread medicated stuff for birds, or well, not really for birds, but for like other animals. Well, can't we just give them all flu shots?
No. They would die.
Can you imagine?
I suppose that's true.
That's a big reason why like commercial poultry operations have really high biosecurity, really like shower in, shower out type facilities, and they're all kept like they're kept in an indoor enclosed environment, so they're not exposed to wild birds. And this is a big reason why. And
yet, for welfare purposes, I hate everything about that.
It can still be free range, they're just indoors.
Do we know what the definition of that is? Because I do, and it just simply means they have an extra half an inch per bird.
They're not in a cage.
They are. They still are. It's just bigger. Or sometimes, depending on where you are in the country, because it's by province that dictates that. Although Poultry Farmers of Canada is trying to like unite the country, and they've come far. Sometimes it just simply is the same size cage, but fewer chickens in it. But they literally declaw them, and they have to like clip their beaks because they attack each other. Like from a welfare perspective, it's real bad. But also avian flu sounds worse.
Yeah, I mean the producers do not want it because they depopulate.
Well, you'd have to cull the whole herd basically, or the flock, not herd. But yeah, like we can't keep them. Like,
no.
Are they symptomatic? Like, do the birds get
get sick?
So it's obvious. Like, if a farmer's walked out to their chickens, or somebody walked out to their backyard chickens, it would be like, "Ooh, you don't look so hot."
I mean, I think it's yeah, and I think I don't know a lot about chickens.
Neither do I.
Medicine wise, but
I don't.
Like commercial poultry producers, they have like mortality statistics, right? You expect a certain amount of mortality, and then if you had bird flu, there would be like quite a rise in your mortality, and then you have to figure out why.
Fair. Yeah, my knowledge of chickens is generally fairly limited. Like I know more about their welfare because I sat on the committee trying to increase animal welfare and animal farming in general across the country. But that's about it. Like, I know more about chicken behavior than I think I probably should for someone who does not work with chickens on a regular basis.
But anyways, don't to protect your cat from the chickens, basically.
And your parrots, apparently. I didn't, that was a really good question. That was a good one. Yeah. We should put that in like the Hall of Fame of questions.
Just hit me. I was like, the parrots.
And I wonder if it's all birds too, right? Or like all domestic birds, or if that's just a generalization. Like, would budgies be more susceptible than like your African greys or your cockatiels?
Again, I think it probably all depends on exposure, right?
That's really scary. I don't like things that you can't do anything about. I'm not a fan. I don't like things we can't fix.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it gets in the wildlife, that's scary stuff.
Well, it's the same as like distemper, right? Wasn't that like before vaccines? That was our big problem, was that it was being spread by, and it still technically is spread usually by wild animals.
Well, and the biggest the biggest cause of the increase of Lyme in our area is because of birds carrying ticks.
We need more possums. How come possums don't get Lyme disease? There's a fun question.
I don't know. Cats don't either.
Really?
No.
So they can get avian flu, but they can't get Lyme? What even is this immune system? It's the most misprogrammed immune system I've ever seen.
But the other reason to really monitor dead birds is West Nile virus.
Oh, I forgot about West Nile virus. Oh my God, that's so 2018, Leah.
West Nile. Right? That's a huge
People think mosquitoes.
The birds.
Ooh. What was the other one mosquitoes were doing in Mexico? And I went to Mexico and someone's like, watch out for this. Oh, it was Zika.
Oh, yeah,
Zika.
Zika.
And I'm like, I'm not planning to
Zika
have children. I
virus.
think I'll be fine. Also, mosquitoes don't bite me. I am the lucky part of the 5% of the world's population that don't get mosquito bites. Lucky me, my blood should be studied by science. But all that to say, I keep your cats indoors. Stop playing with chickens. If your neighbors have chickens.
Store your pet food appropriately.
Store your pet food appropriately. My God, if I could tattoo that to my face, I probably would. I mean, I could. But
No, I wouldn't let you.
But I would put a big sign up. Maybe I will put a big sign up in my vestibule.
But any like, it's a really good point. Any palatability return, quality control return, recall, whatever. Your pet just gets diarrhea on this food. If it has a guarantee and you want to return it, you have to have the packaging.
Yes. And I can tell you every food we carry comes with a guarantee, even our raw food. So if your dog, cat, whatever doesn't do well, they have diarrhea. Assuming you transitioned properly. If you just cold transitioned, that's on you. But if you followed transition protocol and your dog didn't do well, they don't even like it. Bring it back. But you got to have the packaging because I need to be able to send it back.
In cases like that, do they also need to have the receipt? Because if you're anything like me, you either don't take the receipt or you lose it in your car on the way home.
Our food all has loyalty program attached to it, so we take your name.
Yeah.
And so even people who are like, well, I don't care about the loyalty, I'm like, I need it in case there's a recall because I need to be able to reach you if there's a recall. Did you know it's mandatory if you buy farm feed to give your name? It's not optional. You have to give it in case there's a recall because, and I only know that, not that I feed animals, because my two youngest puppos, although I guess they're not my two youngest anymore, my two of my middle children, were litter trained when they came home. There's balloons. Did everyone else see that?
Yes. I don't know what just happened there.
There were
balloons?
The balloons just came. I didn't touch anything. My hands were here. I don't know what I did.
That's weird.
I triggered something. Anyways, they were litter trained when they came in, and they were litter trained on the alfalfa pellets because if dogs eat that litter, there's no clumping, it doesn't do anything, it's completely safe if they eat it. It's just grass, basically. So I went to Richie Feed and Seed to buy the alfalfa pellets, and they made me give them my name, and I said, well, I'm not feeding it to anybody, it's dog litter. And they're like, it doesn't matter, it's mandatory. So anyways, in our store, we can't force you because it's not mandatory to give it to the pet store. But we really encourage it for recall purposes and because why the hell wouldn't you not want to buy 12, get one free? And because you can transfer it too. So let's say for whatever reason you stopped buying from me, but also don't do that, keep buying from me. But let's say hypothetically you stopped, you can transfer your receipts to another store. So...
Wait, you can? Does that work for any buy 12 get one free program?
As far as I know.
They're mostly by the manufacturer.
Yeah, they're not. It's not my program. It's by the company. So we do it all the time. Customers will stop buying at their other pet store and buy from us instead because we're awesome. And sometimes the customers can't get their receipts, so I phone the store and I get their receipts.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
I'm gonna see if my Pet Value can do that for me for the.
You
old
might
pet
have
store
to
I used
get
to go here.
him to call, but technically, yes, for Square Pet, they'll do it. And if you have a really hard time, have him call the rep. The rep will do it for you.
Well, the Square Pet is from Colin, so that's a completely different.
You want the other one?
I can't get it in any other store on PEI. But I'm just thinking for Open Farm and My Natural Balance, just to put everything in one because
Yep, they'll do that.
I'm making myself a note tomorrow.
Yeah, variety of reasons keep your bags. Stop using plastic containers unless you're keeping the food in the bag. Remember, your pet food bags are also designed to contain the fats and the acids and the moisture that kibble contains. This applies to raw food too. If you're the type of person who puts it in a little glass container in your fridge with a lid on it, I don't put it in the package in your little glass container with a lid on it.
I do wish that more kibble bags, regardless of the size of them, were resealable.
Yes, it is a huge thing.
Because, like,
yeah,
Natural Balance was not, and I hated that about them. Open Farm was.
But it's a Velcro.
Like,
and
I've gone.
Yes. I wish it was like the, you know what do they call
I
it? Like
love
a
that
Ziploc?
one.
Yeah.
The Ziploc.
Yeah, it is a highly requested item that we send feedback to all the time. Like when the reps come into our store, they always ask, like, what's the feedback? What are you getting? What are you hearing? What do you want to do? Because that's the best way for them to get like mass feedback.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things we hear. And when people come into my store and they tell me it's fine, I'm just going to dump it into the container. First of all, that's the wrong thing to say to me. Did you not have an hour to spare? Because too freaking bad you were stuck here listening to my health lecture. The staff make fun of me all the time because it's always the client that's in a rush. And I'm like, I don't care. You are stuck here learning. Anyway, so it's always that. Like, they're like, well, I hate that the bag doesn't close and it smells like kibble, because kibble does smell bad.
But it doesn't smell bad enough that you would notice it. Like,
just put it in a closet.
My kibble's in a room. It's in a bin in the room. But like, even when I open the airtight bin, I'm not getting like a face full of kibble smell. Like maybe it's because I feed vegan kibble.
All kibble smells.
But
smell is part of the palatability of food, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I roll.
Maybe my nose is broken.
The chip clip. Yeah. Yeah. And they do make, so pet stores we'd have a really hard time getting them, but like storage bin companies do make them big enough to fit all those bags of food. Like it's.
Yeah, I have a big one.
Go buy one of those, put the whole bag in. And if you were feeding Northwest Naturals and you had not heard about this recall, please check if you were feeding your cat this raw food, whether or not you have the matching lot number and an expiration date of January 31st. Please. And if you do, bring it back to your local retailer, return it immediately. Stop feeding it today. Your cat will be fine. Just stop feeding it. I don't want to hear, I have to transition. Trust me, avian flu is worse than your diarrhea cat for a day. So, yeah. That's it for avian flu. Did we miss anything?
I think so.
I feel really good about that. All right.
Okay.
I love it. See everybody next time. Love you all. Bye.